Welcome to this session. We are talking today about open source collaboration tools for Alfresco, how to improve the online editing experience by using the Alfresco as document repository and some other known open source services for the collaborative editing online. My name is Angel Borroy. I'm developer evangelist in Highland. That is the company that is producing Alfresco today. And I hope you enjoy this session. Let's move with the agenda for today. On the first part, we are going to review what Alfresco does. So the main features of Alfresco as CSP, and we are going also over this topic later. The second part will be focused on the default applications provided by Alfresco and the integration API, so you can understand what the integrations we are going to explore later are adding to the product. And after that, we are going to focus on the online editing collaboration tools that we are testing today, mainly LibreOffice, Collabora Online, and OnlyOffice. So we are going to see some live demos on how to integrate this with Alfresco and how to use that with the Alfresco applications. And finally, some recap, some thoughts about the future and about these integrations we are going to explore. So let's move to the first topic, Alfresco as CSP. So the content service platform is a term that was coined by Gartner back in 2014. And mainly what that means is that it's a set of services, APIs and repositories that are working with content types, that are working with documents, and that are helping to classify and to manage all these documents. On the last year, this topic was named as ECM, Enterprise Content Management, but in these days, this term, this content service platform, is the most used in order to classify this kind of platforms like Alfresco. Remember also that Alfresco is an open source product. The main license is LGPL version 3, so you may copy, distribute, and modify the software, and you need to provide also source code if you are extending the Alfresco. As it happens in the modules, in the add-ons we are going to see later. We are open to the community, so you have all the source code available in the Alfresco GitHub account. We have also a Maven repository because mainly this is developed with Java. So you have this open Maven repository. You can get in touch with the community in the Alfresco hub, hub.alfresco.com. And there is also the official documentation available that you can also contribute to improve that. And we have also some chatting channels like the Alfresco Discord channel. So we are open to you. Just reach us if you have some thought of if you want just to improve the experience with the Alfresco open source product. So let's start reviewing what are the features provided by Alfresco and by mainly all the other content service platforms. So this is like a classical flow of document management inside a content service platform. So you start with the ingestion of the document. So you need to put the documents on the repository. And in this step, you can apply some OCR transformation and classification operations. And once we have the document inside the repository, then we need to classify that by using content models describing the properties, the metadata associated to a document. We need also, we are providing also the searching by using this metadata, these properties, these values, and also the content of the documents. We can also transform the documents, just changing the MIME type or for some enrichment of the metadata or the content. And we can also provide some automation, some workflow for the rules in order to work with the document, to transform the document or to move the document between different users. And finally, it's the collaboration, it's the review, the co-authoring, the online editing, and so on process that happens between the users on the same document. And for that, we have like a simple integration with Office and Google Docs that we are going to see later. So let's move on the ingestion process. So the ingestion process mainly is just getting a document that can be rotated, that can be grained. We can apply some processes like OCR or transformation in order to get something more clear, in order to get the text of the document and the right quality, so we can classify the document. In this case, we are extracting the metadata, the type of the contract, the name, the taker, provider address, some metadata, and also the content of the document. And with that, we have the document inside the Alfresco repository. If we move to the content model, so the content model is something that is used in order to describe every document, in order to classify the document with different metadata. So in this case, we are using a type that can be a list of a string, the name of the document, taker, that is the name of the taker, and provider also can be a list of different strings. We can apply a regular expression in order to validate the input, the postal code, and the content. And with that definition, we are providing UI forms for the users in order to change the properties, the values of the properties, or in order to verify that is extracted in the right way. We can upload the document also manually, and something that we are also providing is the versioning for the content and for the metadata, so you can understand the different changes that are happening on a document. If we move to the searching part, in Alfresco, we are providing 3 different search syntaxes. So the first one should be like free. So you can use a term in order to get the information from metadata and content. You can use FTS. FTS is the Alfresco syntax. So you can just combine your terms with some properties, with the value of some properties, so in this case like the type contract. And finally we have the standard CMIS, that is something related with SQL. It's like the SQL syntax, and also allows you to create some filters and some conditions on your documents. So with that, we are providing facets, and we are providing also the results from your searching type, and you can just connect with your documents. For this process, we are also applying permissions. So every user, every document is associated to user or groups, to some authorities. So we are applying also that to your searching capabilities. Another service provided is the transform service. So for this transform service, we can create some renditions. For instance, a thumbnail of one document, or we can start some pages. We can also apply NLP to extract or to recognize some information that is on the document. And finally, we can apply also some transformations to the main type. So finally, you got like different versions of the input of the initial document. If we move to the automation, we have, for instance, these folder rules that are able to classify the document according to different criteria. So for instance, for every document of type contract, you have to start the approval workflow. And the approval workflow is something that also is provided by the Alfresco repository, and that is relying in the activity engine, that is a BPMN engine. So we can define a workflow for the document, and with different steps that are prepared for user interaction or for automation, some process and connection with external services and so on. So these are like the first steps for a document, and once the document is prepared, once we have this document with all the metadata, with the content, with the searching capabilities, then we need to start working with that in many cases. So by default, Alfresco is providing the SharePoint protocol that can be used with Office in order to edit these Office documents. We have also support for Google Docs, so we can copy the document to Google Docs. You can edit the document in Google Docs, and that is coming again back to the repository, to the Alfresco repository. But we have something in the middle that is not covered. That is the online editing, the collaboration with an online and open source platform. And this is what we are going to see today. This is what we are going to explore in this session. But let's start with the integration mechanisms and the applications that are provided by Alfresco default out of the box. Let's start with that. If we talk about Alfresco applications and integration APIs, just for you to understand how to integrate a solution with Alfresco, we can think of the main user applications that these days are two of them. We have one that is named SER. This web application is like the legacy web application that provides the access to the documents and all the collaboration features, and that is it's built on top of FreeMaker, Dojo, Toolkit, and UI. So they are like all technologies, and the development happens in Java. So we are creating Java projects in order to extend this application. On the other hand, we have also the ADF, the Alfresco Development Framework, that it's built on top of Angular. So you have some Angular components, and you can add your Angular components to this UI application. So there are different applications with different SDKs with different ways of extending. Currently, many users are still using SER, but the new users are using ADF, ACA, that is the Alfresco Content Application. It's one implementation of this ADF. So if you are planning to create something new for the Alfresco ecosystem, then you need to move to the Angular one, right? And if you are supporting still previous deployments of Alfresco, probably you want to create something for SER. For the Alfresco SER, we are talking about Alfresco SER add-ons. So you have on the Alfresco documentation all the instructions in order to create this kind of extension for this application that can be declarative, just configuring something of the application, changing some behaviors and default behaviors of the application. You can create something that is programmatic, so you can add new feature, add new functionality to the application, and you can even override default behaviors of the application. So this is very rich, and it's really relying on this Maven project. So it's a Java project, you add all your modifications, and you deploy that on the SER web application. If we move to the Alfresco UI extension, to the ADF, then this is something different. Then you need to use an Angular project, and you can override or disable extension points. You can change some rules, actions, or visual elements. You can register new application routes, and you can also reuse new rules, evaluators, component guards, and so on. So you have all the information also on the Alfresco official documentation, and the extensibility, this extending mechanism, it's able to apply your Angular components to the default application. So you are working in this case with Angular, so you need a bit of knowledge of Angular in order to extend that. If we move to the integration API, so remember that we were talking about SER and ADF, that are mainly the UIs, are mainly the user applications that we are providing. But even with that, you have also some extension mechanisms on the repository. So you have the REST API and the event APIs that we are compiling both into the Alfresco Java SDK, that the name is out of process, because this integration happened out of the Alfresco repository. So you can use both REST API and the events API that is relying on ActiveMQ from this SDK. If you want to create an extension inside the repository, then we have the in-process SDK. So with this SDK, you can create some new REST endpoints, or you can create some behavior different inside the Alfresco repository. And finally, we are supporting also the standard CMIS client that should be more or less also some out-of-process extension. So let's go deeper with the first one. So this out-of-process is relying on events and REST APIs. Again, in the official documentation, you have everything you need in order to use this API. And this is based on Cloud Events specification and OpenSPI specification. So both events and the REST API are specified on standards that you can rely on. And you have all the different actions and all the different information in relation with action, activities, comments, notes, and so on. So you are able to interact with all the different entities of the repository by using events or using the REST API. If we move to the in process, to the Maven SDK that is relying in Java, you can just create a new content model. You can add some new REST API endpoints. You can also create some behaviors for some policies in the repository. So you can just create new behaviors for that and add new code to the standard Alfresco lifecycle for the nodes. You can create some transformations and extract some metadata, and even you can create some scheduled jobs. So you have a wide variety of operations that you can extend on the Alfresco repository by using this kind of integration. If we move to the CMIS, that is a standard developed by Oasis, so you have all the specification at this point. Alfresco is supporting like 90% of the standard, so we have a wide coverage of the standard. And in this case, we are working with REST API bundles that can be in XML or in JSON, so browser or AtomPub. And we have also some kind of services like navigation, object, multifiling, discovery, versioning, relationship. So we are able also to interact with the repository by using this CMIS standard that have clients for many different technologies. So Java, obviously, Python, and many different technologies that you can use. So these are mainly the all the different ways of extending Alfresco. So remember the applications, and if we these UI applications, these user applications, but then we can also move to the repository, and we can also extend the repository features by using one of the SDKs. So let's move to the next section. Okay, let's start with the online editing collaboration tools. That this is like the main topic of this session, and we are going to start with LibreOffice. So the first integration with LibreOffice was relying on web app or CMIS protocol. So we can see this sample from our partner, from our community developer, Red Pill Limpro, that was just checking out a document, editing the document, checking in the document again. So it was a process that was not that easy, right? So you have this description, you have this process description also for reference, but we are going to explore something like is like more simple than that. That is the Collabora Online project. So Collabora Online is a project that is providing LibreOffice for the online editing. So you have this project that is hosted by Collabora Online itself, that is the Alfresco Collabora Online, is an add-on for Alfresco that we are going to see later, and is maintained by Yesi. Yesi is a French company, very focused in open source. But the nice thing about that is that this project is coming from Magenta, that was a Danish company, and this Danish company created some initial version. Then this developer, Jeremy Lesage from Jesse, created something better. Arawa came later to create something better, and finally all this previous work was consolidated in the Alfresco Collabora Online, that is currently the version we are using. So this add-on that you have available on this GitHub and on the Collabora Online GitHub account provides online editing for Alfresco using Collabora Online. So many users can open the same document at the same time, and they can collaborate together on the same document. This integration is made by using WOPI, this Web Application Open Platform Interface Protocol. So that means that we are open an iframe inside Alfresco, and it's really very handy because you have your iframe and you can just work with that without being out of Alfresco. So very clean implementation from that, and it's providing an add-on for Alfresco Ser for the legacy application. It's also providing an extension of the UI for ACA, for ADF, an Angular extension, an Angular component, and it's providing also the Alfresco repository add-on. This Alfresco repository add-on is required, and you can deploy the Ser add-on or the UI extension if you are using Ser or if you are using ADF, ACA application, and Angular application. But the repository is required because it's providing some services that are used by both UI applications. In order to test this project, we have created a repository that includes a Docker Compose template that you can use to test the integration. So this is just something that you can use to test the integration. But if you want to deploy that in production, or if you want to move further with the integration, then probably you need to contact with Jesse, or you need to spend some time in order to understand better how that works. So this Docker Compose needs some modifications for you. The first one is that you need to use to add your public URLs for Collabora and Alfresco. So in this Alfresco setting, I'm using this one that is my local IP, but you need to add yours. And then we are using the Collabora Online Development Edition. So we are using this code with no SSL, and we are exposing that by using the port 9980. So these are like the main characteristics of the Docker Compose. Just remember to add your own IP. And we are also just extending the Alfresco Docker images in order to deploy the Collabora platform extension from the repository, and in order also to deploy the Collabora Ser extension for the Ser application. We are not providing the Collabora ICA extension, so we are not providing the ADF extension, the Angular component, because we want to compare this integration, this Collabora integration, with OnlyOffice. Since OnlyOffice don't have ADF extension, we are only using this. But you can also deploy this Collabora ACA extension if you are using ADF or ACA. There is no problem in doing that. Just follow the instructions on the main web page on the GitHub project and you can understand how to apply that. And with no more explanations, let's dive into the demo. Before starting with the demo, just remember that you have in the Collabora Online GitHub account, you have this Alfresco Collabora Online. That is the project we are going to use. That is the one providing the add-ons for the repository, this platform extension for this Ser application. This one, we are not going to use the Collabora IC extension, the Angular extension, but you can also use that. You have all the instructions below. Just for you to understand how to build and deploy that. And we are going to use this Alfresco Collaboration Tools project that includes the Docker Compose template for both Collabora and OnlyOffice. So for the Collabora one, we have this Docker Compose with some Alfresco and Ser Docker image extensions. So just remember to check your IP. So in my case, my IP is this one, my public IP is this one, so this is the one I need to use. Okay, just change that in the Docker Compose, and without any additional instruction, we can just start the Docker Compose. So let's start that. I just have the project locally. So Docker Compose app, we are going to build the Docker images. So the Docker images are very easy. So we have this, the extension at this point, and we are just extending the Alfresco repository and copying the jar to the deployment folder. And it's the same thing exactly for SER. So we have an extension and we are copying this extension to the deployment folder. So once the deployment is ready, then we need to use this URL or this URL in order to access the environment. So just let's wait for it to start. It looks like now it's ready. So we can just go and open a new Alfresco with SER. We are opening this SER web application that has this the Collabora online on it. With this extension, we can just go and find some document like this one. And with that, you can see this edit in Collabora online action. That is something that was added by the add-on. If we click on that, then we have this, we have the news. So we have this iframe that is on the Alfresco application. We can just add something. We can change something on that. We can just save the document. And when we close, then we have like the new document with the with all of the changes, and we have also that version. So let me create also some additional users so we can experiment how that works with many different users editing the same document. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so now we have two different users with access to the document. We have the test1 in this browser, and we have the test2 in this other browser. So if we start editing the document with test1, we can go back to this other user, and we can see that currently it's been edited with Collabora Online, but we still can be editing the document also. So with that, we have collaborative editing with test1, with test2, we can make some changes. For instance, I'm going to change that with the user with text2, and we can save that. If we move to the other one, the change is happening, is live, and we can change also from this other user this color, and we can again save that. So once we are back to the document, we can see that if we close also this edition and we refresh the environment, it's not being edited anymore. All the changes are happening on the document, and on the version history, we have the change happen by test2 and test1. So very clean, it works as expected, and is very useful to apply this kind of collaboration, of editing collaboration with Collabora Online. So it worked. Let's move to the next one. If we move to the OnlyOffice integration, then we have another case of collaboration. So the initial integration was created by Setrat3. That user was working for Parashift. So they created the initial version, and then this was adopted by OnlyOffice itself on the GitHub account of OnlyOffice in order to promote and to improve this integration. So you have the project in the official GitHub account of OnlyOffice. It provides online editing also, and many users can be editing at the same time. So it's more or less the same thing as Collabora. But in this case, they are using a custom protocol that is not WordPress, and it updates the document after 10 seconds of inactivity in OnlyOffice. So you can also just tune that, but it's a custom protocol created specifically for this operation. You can also get access to the details on the GitHub account. And also the difference is that we are not using an iframe anymore, but we are opening OnlyOffice in a new browser window, in a new browser tab. So we are editing the document on this tab, and then we are going back to Alfresco. This add-on is providing an Alfresco Share add-on and Alfresco repository add-on, so there is no option for ADF or ACA for the Angular components in this case, but you can still develop that because it's more or less the same thing as we have with the Collabora add-on. The deployment provided, again, on the Alfresco Collaboration Tools project with the OnlyOffice folder, is just using the OnlyOffice document server, but with the JWT option enabled, because we are using the latest version of the document server, so we need to enable this authentication. So we are using this secret, and we are sharing this secret in the document server, in the OnlyOffice document server, and we are also applying that to the Alfresco repository. So we are deploying the jar application in the Alfresco repository, and we are adding this for the Alfresco global property. So the OnlyOffice URL, remember that this should be also the public URL, and the secret that we are sharing with the document server, with the OnlyOffice. And we are deploying the OnlyOffice integration in the share application, and no extension is available for the Alfresco Content App. So extending the Docker images just to add these settings, the OnlyOffice URL and the JWT secret, and creating this JWT secret on the configuration for the Docker Compose. So with that in mind, let's start with the demo. For OnlyOffice, again, we have the OnlyOffice project in the official OnlyOffice GitHub account with your instructions, and you have also the releases ready to be deployed on that. So you have both add-ons available. And we have created this OnlyOffice project that again has the Docker Compose templates for reference. Remember again to use your own public IP for that. Just change this parameter, and then you can just go with that. So we have also the project again, so we can start this on the OnlyOffice folder. And the extension in this case is more or less the same thing. So we have this Docker file, and we are copying the add-on, the jar file, to the deployment folder. Since this is not supporting environment variables, this add-on, we are copying the configuration we want also as the Alfresco global property. So it's a small difference with the other, with the JWT secret, and also with the public URL, and insert is more or less the same. So we are extending the Alfresco Docker image and copying the jar to the deployment folder. So again, more or less the same approach, a simple Docker Compose with some extension for the Alfresco Docker images in order to apply that. So we can just go with that. We can open again share. We are going to use the admin user for the first test. Let's see if that is working. So in this case, something that is also interesting is that if we navigate to the same document we were modifying before, so this one, we have now the read in OnlyOffice or convert using OnlyOffice. So this is because OnlyOffice is not supporting the this format. So we can convert the document, and once the document is converted, we have this one that is ready to be edited in OnlyOffice. So with that, again, this is OnlyOffice window. We can just change that. And once we close these windows, when we say, okay, this is safe, after some time, we are going to get the modification in Alfresco. So you can say that the system still thinks that the document is being edited. But if we wait a bit more, then we have the version 2.0 and we have the modification on it. So it's also something that we can use very easily. We just need to wait a bit to get the changes in the Alfresco repository, and let's see now how that works when different users are editing the same document. And let me create some configuration and let's move to that. Okay, so we have a similar setting. So we have the user test1 in this browser, we have the user test2 in this other browser, and just let's check what's happening when I click on edit in OnlyOffice. So I'm editing in OnlyOffice with the first user. If I move to this one and I refresh, I can see like the document is locked, so I cannot co-edit on that. So I need just some cooperation in order to collaborate with it. So I can close this one and wait a bit, since that is not edited anymore. And the same thing on the other side. And we can just click on editing OnlyOffice and editing OnlyOffice again. So now we are both editing the same document at the same time. So we have two users and two users. If I change this one from user 2, okay, and I close, that will be safe. And if I change this other from user 1, so yes, let's move to green again, and I close again, then probably, or I expect to find the document is still locked by the other user. So let's wait a bit. Remember that there is some time you need to wait. Okay, now everything, all the changes are on the document, and I have also this change. So only the latest changes, the latest change was updated to Alfresco. So we don't have the full history, but we were able to edit the document both at the same time by using OnlyOffice, right? So the behavior is a bit different, but it's still working and is still able to provide collaboration between both. Okay, that was also awesome, and let's move with some more material for today. Okay, once we learn about Alfresco, what Alfresco is providing, and we learn also about all the different APIs and applications that Alfresco is providing, we review two different approaches for the online editing collaboration. One coming from Collabora Online, that is relying on LibreOffice, and the other coming from OnlyOffice. So both integrations are providing add-ons for the repository, for the share application, and also the Collabora Online is providing an Angular component for the new UI for the ADF ACA Alfresco UI application. So with that, just remember that Alfresco is providing some content service platform features that can be useful for you in order to prepare the documents for this online collaboration. However, in Alfresco, we are adding this collaborative editing feature by using external services. We are talking about the community edition, the open source edition, that you have the source code and so on. So for this edition, you need to add collaborative editing by using, for instance, OnlyOffice or Collabora Online. And as I said, you can use share for both, and you can use ADF also for Collabora Online. Thanks to every contributor that made this real. So as we saw before, this was like a journey in order to create the Collabora Online add-on for Alfresco, and also a shorter journey for the OnlyOffice add-on. But it was a history of collaboration, and this is something that really makes that happens and made that valuable. And if you are planning to integrate your service with Alfresco, yes, contact me, reach me, yes, talk me in the conference, or just reach me by any of my social media, because really we like you to use our product and we like to create these collaboration histories. So I hope that was a useful session for you. You have my email, and you have me also in the in the social media. So just always willing to help and willing to collaborate with you in some ideas or some projects you have. It was a pleasure from my side. See you there and bye.